Alright guys, it's your girl Matt Cox with MA Couture Crafting, and we are going to talk about this mug rug right here. Isn't she pretty? Totally a cottagecore-esque aesthetic, at least that's what I'm calling it. I like it. It's really, really pretty flowers with this beautiful black and white border, and the quilting comes through on the back, so you do want to be aware of that. But if you want to do a mug rug and you're a beginner, I think this is a really cool place to start. It's just like doing a little mini quilt. Picking the fabrics is fun, and you can kind of customize this however you want. I didn't want to give you guys a bunch of different measurements because it just gets confusing. And so I just want this to be intuitive and fun, and bam, there you go. I also show you how to make this box in another video. And this is what I'm going to put the mug rug plus these bowl cozies and this little tea guy in. It's just a super duper cute way of gifting it, in my opinion. So if you'd like to see how to make this mug rug and those bowl cozies and the little teacup cozy, stay tuned. Bye-bye. Let's make this beautiful pastel ethereal mug rug and bowl cozy and tea cozy. Why not? So this is some more, I think this is Cafe. You know what? Maybe not. No, this isn't Cafe Facet. I don't know whose fabric this is, but I got it from Pink Sand Designs, that I do know. And it's got these really pretty big florals on it. And this is going to my girlfriend, Tiffy Starchild. Shout out to Tiffy, who, this is her color palette all day long. She is the lavender, she is the pastels. And I really enjoy making stuff for other people so that I can play with colors outside of my comfort zone. Well, I shouldn't say outside of my comfort zone. They're just not what I would choose for me. But I like playing with color. So I get a chance to really dive into who I think this person is as far as their color story goes. And I just love that. So I am cutting down some squares right now. The bowl cozy pre-cuts call for 10.5-inch squares. So I did a 10.5-inch square, and the teacup cozy that I do is a 5.5-inch square. So there that is. And now I'm just cutting some random strips. I want all of the strips to be more than 1 inch, but it doesn't matter. I'm just cutting strips. This is not something that I want you to stress about. Just cut some strips. Just try to make sure that they're 1 inch or larger. You don't want any super tiny strips. Remember, you've got a 1/4 inch seam that you're sewing, and so you really don't want to do less than that if you can avoid it. So I'm just cut some strips. Not a big deal. No need to stress about exactly what sizes they are. Just cut some strips. And now we need to do the same thing for this, for the other side of the bowl cozy and in this other color of fabric. This is that grunge fabric that I am just constantly reaching for in every colorway. I need to have it in every single colorway that they make because I am constantly going to this. It's like when you want a solid, but you don't. You just want it to have a little movement, a little something, and this is it. Grunge for the win. It seems like every time. They actually have like a polka dot one that would have worked really well for this too. I forgot I had this ruler. Shout out to Square Rulers. Like, they are just lovely. And so this is the first time I'm using that ruler. And that ruler was by Creative Grids. This one here is by Quilter Select, and they are my new favorite rulers. So here I'm just cutting strips. No rhyme or reason. I just want them to be all a little bit larger than 1/2. So now I've got to pick what thread color. I really have been enjoying playing with threads lately. The thicker threads, the quilting threads, like just picking the colors has been fun. But then I guess I would enjoy that because I'm one of those crazy color people. So I decided that the back of the mug rug is going to be out of this fabric. And so I'm cutting that down right now. No, actually I'm cutting the 10.5-inch square. I guess I do the mug rug later. 10.5-inch squares for this, nice and simple. Lay that batting down. This is the fastest way to make bowl cozies. There are definitely other ways to do it, but the fastest is this way right here with this lovely pre-cut batting that's 100% cotton. Please make sure that you're using 100% cotton batting, 100% cotton fabric, and 100% cotton thread, so that if somebody puts this in the microwave, we don't have an explosion or a fire or God knows what else. So you just mark an X from one edge to the other, nice and simple, nothing special. And then I grabbed my open toe foot so that I could actually see the line, and there we go, smooth sailing. I get a lot of questions about what kind of sewing machine. This is just a nice starter machine. There's nothing super spectacular about the sewing machine, but it works, and it has, I mean, it's conquered everything that I've thrown at it, so I like it. Now we're just going to fold it in half, and I'm just going to try to match up the batting the best I can. I am not, stressing over it. And then we're just going to sew a 1/4 inch down. So I've got that foot lined up with the edge of this dart right here. Bam, nice and easy. Again, this has got to be the fastest gift that you can make. If you've got some pre-cut squares around, no problem. I went to a quilt store today called Easy Quilter, Easy Quilter, Easy Quilting, and they have pre-cut batting and pre-cut fabric. Like, that is even faster. So now I'm just going to cut off that excess fabric with my scissors and go around this little curve. I am not stressing out about it. We're just cutting it off. There we go. And cut off one more with my fabric scissors. And now we are going to put these right sides together, fabric sides together, pretty sides together, however you want to put it. And we're going to clip these darts together. I'm pushing one dart in one direction and pushing the other one the other direction. I like to push the back dart, the one that's furthest from me, to the right. So that way, as I'm putting it through my sewing machine, I don't have to be trying to flip it. Now I'm putting in pins to remember to leave an opening. 9 times out of 10, if I'm putting a pin in something, it's because I got to remember something. I use wonder clips to keep my fabric and stuff together, but pins tell me to start and stop and backstitch. So the first place that you put your needle down should be the pin that's closest to you. You want to go forward and backward to lock that stitch, and do the same thing when you end, because you've got to leave a hole so that you can turn this right sides out. It's just good practice to clip your curves. You don't have to. This is a gentle enough curve where it's not a big deal, but it's just good practice. So I'm not cutting through it. I'm just cutting right up to it. And then you just flip it inside out. Now, I don't really have a super hard time flipping stuff inside out. It's really not that difficult. It seems they're like, oh, leave a big enough hole. Well, if you leave a big enough hole, it's really not that difficult. I recently got that little tool to the right. Now I have a purple thing, which I like, but this one is a little bit sturdier. I can really push on this, and I like it. It works really well. This is a good buy. Because again, the purple thing is cool, but it's kind of plastic and it's kind of flimsy when you need to push out those corners. So the little opening, I'm just tucking it in to try to make it look like the rest of the fabric, try to make it like a nice smooth transition. And I'm grabbing the iron and we're giving it a little press job here. It's amazing what pressing your fabric after it's all wrinkly does. It just cleans it right up. It looks all pretty. I'm not starting where the opening is. As you can see, the opening is closest to me. I'm starting on the side and we're going to curve around. I like to use a zigzag stitch here just because a straight stitch is never going to be straight. And so I feel like a straight stitch just draws too much attention to the fact that it's probably not going to be super straight. So a zigzag gives it a little something. And then I pressed it again and bam, we have a bowl cozy. Probably, I think bowl cozies take me about 20 minutes with the pre-cut batting. So if I had the pre-cut batting and the pre-cut fabric, that would cut the time even more. I know that AccuQuilt has a die that you can run through the machine that will take care of that for you. And that means that you can really just assembly line those guys and it'll be just super duper fast. So for the mug rug, I'm using 100% cotton batting again, just because it's open and it's there. And I just rough cut 3 pieces of fabric. The 2 smaller ones are for my 5.5 inch squares, which I'm cutting up right now, making sure that they are 5.5. And that other larger piece, I think I cut like 12 by 10. I am not overly concerned with saving batting. I mean, I'm not. So I cut larger a lot of times and then come through and clean it up. If you are trying to be conservative with your batting, definitely you might want to cut and measure a little better than I do. I'm just not going through it. So I drew my X, and we're going to do the same thing, except for the darts are not pre-done for us, so we have to make our own. So I'm marking 1 inch on that side that's closest to me, and then I go up a 1/2 inch. So make sure the arrow is pointing towards you from the X, and go in 1 inch and up a 1/2 inch, and then just draw lines to connect the dots. And instead of sewing 1/4 of an inch away, you're going to actually sew on this line. We are marking our sewing lines. So I started off with the 5.5 inch square. We drew an X, and now I am sewing directly on the line after it's been folded in half. And this is on the folded side. That little pen is a water soluble pen. It's not like a Sharpie or anything like that. Sharpies will possibly seep through your fabric, and they're there permanently, and they might stain your cutting mat. I just don't like to fool with Sharpies and fabric. I know, some people do, but no. The only time I would really use a Sharpie is if I were writing something on like a quilt label. And I would be very careful doing that. And so you see I did that at the sewing machine. You're just going to make sure you do both sides the exact same way. Now we're going to make them kiss. And I should have cut them down a little bit to reduce bulk, but I was like, do I need to? Yeah, it would have been better. It would have been better to cut off the excess and leave about 1/8 the way that we did the other one. But the other one was just fabric. This is batting, which causes super chunky areas to have to sew over. And I was just kind of curious to see what was going to happen. And nothing really happened except for it was chunky. Imagine that. Make sure that you start and stop with using a back stitch, because we have to flip these inside out, and that puts quite a bit of pressure on that opening. Leave an opening, do not forget. When you're sewing these, I like them because if you're sewing a 1/4 inch, you just stop on the line and then just rotate, and then you have these really nice corners. I'm clipping off the excess batting there in the corner so that when I turn it inside out, it just has a little bit more room to breathe. I bought some hemostats by Tula Pink recently, and I wanted to see if that made a difference in turning stuff inside out. No, not really. I mean, it worked fine, but wasn't that big of a deal. So I'm using that new Clover tool that I had before. It's like a bone folder, except for it's not Teflon, so I would never use this to fold paper, but it's basically the same thing. And I'm just working those corners. I love turning things inside out. Somebody calls it birthing the baby. It's fun. I don't know why. It's the little things. Look at how cute this little guy is. I just love teacup cozies. I burned the heck out of myself. I think that was last week, and I was like, no more. I'm tired of using paper towels and stuff. I want something cute. And now we have it. So give it a little haircut, give it a little press, and now we've got to top stitch it to keep everything in place. And again, where you start and stop. Oh no, actually I use a zigzag stitch right here. And when the needle is off to the right, that's when I rotate it and turn it around. I do not start where the opening is. Don't start there. Make sure you're starting elsewhere. And then when the needle's, look at how thick that is. Oh my goodness, the thickness is ridiculous. And when the needle's on the right hand side, that's when I rotate it. Bam. And then I'm going to use that stiletto to kind of push it along. And make sure that it stays there, because it wants to fight you. These are a lot of layers. So you've got to give it a little something. And of course, I could just put in my walking foot, which would help tremendously, but anybody got time for that. So there we are. It's nice and cute. It's like a little bowl. Love it. So I would give that another press and just make it even flatter and crisper. And there you go. Now let's get to the fun part. This is a quilt as you go mug rug. The other ones I've made have just been straight pieced, and I thought, nah, for this one, we're going to quilt as you go, which means that it's going to be faster. I'm cutting the batting much larger than I really need it to be because we're going to trim it down and we're going to give it super clean edges. So I'm cutting it down. I like my mug rugs to be around 8 by 10, maybe 8.5 by 11, no bigger. Otherwise, you might as well just make a placemat. So do not stress about this. Just make it a little bit bigger. Do not stress. This does not have to be stressful. This should be fun and kind of intuitive. Now I'm putting the batting on the fabric. The fabric is pretty side down. Do not have it facing up because you won't be able to see it. And I thought 2 colors just wasn't enough. So I went ahead and grabbed my, I guess you can kind of call these scraps, sort of, kind of. They were from my Disney quilt. I overbought fabric, a lot of fabric. So I have a lot left over. We're going to have to figure out something to do with all that or give it away. But luckily I had some colors that went with this fabric. And I was like, I just need a little something else. I don't need a lot. So I'm cutting like 1-inch strips here, just a little bit. And then I think I cut a super thin strip, not super thin, but like another 1 inch, maybe. Yeah, probably about a 1 inch for this one here. Nothing special. I'm trimming up the edge so I get a clean edge, but nothing, that needs to be measured. I'm just kind of feeling my way around this mug rug. One thing I did want to do is kind of make sure that that first starting line made sense. So I'm making sure that it's a 45-degree angle. I want 45-degree angles on this guy. Sometimes I want 60, sometimes I want 30, sometimes I want whatever, but this time I chose 45. And I'm just kind of looking at what that's going to look like as I quilt it. So pretty side up for one and pretty side down for the other. I know this is a solid and you really can't tell the right sides, but you want to put right sides together, make sure that they're kissing. That very first strip that's laying down, we want to make that one pretty side up. And then I just laid them on top of each other right next to that line. And then I'm sewing down and I'm trying to keep it about 1/4 of an inch away. And then you're going to flip it. And I'm taking that little wooden iron, not heat right now, because then you'll be distorting stuff and it'll just be drama. And then I just scrape it along there. And now we're going to take the pretty side and put it down. I know you think it's the pretty side up, but it's not. Pretty side is down right here. And now we're going to sew 1/4 of an inch away. Bam. You know how much fun this was? I had the time of my life making this little mug rug. So then you flip it. And they have little roller tools and different types of tools you can use for this. And now we're going to put pretty sides together again. But I'm not going to show you me stitching it because nobody has time for that. And then we're just going to rub that iron. This is so pretty with all those little pink pastels. If this isn't the spring cottagecore kind of aesthetic, I don't know what is. So again, not really worried about anything. You just want to make sure that that strip is long enough so that when you flip it, you don't have any gaps. You want to try to avoid that. You want to make sure that the strip is overhanging a little bit on each side if you can. So I worked my way all the way that way. Then I just flipped it around. And now we're going to work our way on the other side. No rhyme or reason. I'm just pulling a strip. I'm not really thinking about it. The wider the strip, though, the wider the strips, the faster this project is going to go. Because remember, it's a little guy. And this is my favorite part. So then when you look at the back, you can see the quilting. But I love cleaning up edges because boy, does it give it a different look. Like you're like, oh, wow, I made something beautiful. So I'm using the lines on my mat to kind of cut down a bit to give me my first straight cut. Look at that. And then I decide kind of how wide I want it. I don't want to cut off too much. And I think I decided on 8 by... I think it's 8 by 11 or maybe 10.5. Don't worry. Just cut it down. And once you've cut off one side, you really need to pay attention to which side you're cutting and the distance away because you don't want to cut off too much and then be like, uh-oh, now I have to make a 6 by 7 mug rug. Look at that. Doesn't she look clean? Now, because I'm putting the binding on the back, I'm going to do something called sealing the edges. I'm just running all around the side with 1/8 inch seam just to make sure that nothing flips back up on me. I don't have time for that. I tried so hard not to put a jewel tone around this border or just, I I didn't want to put these black and white stripes on there, but it's me. I had to. It's her too. I've decided. She's going to love it. So I went with it. Black and white stripes all day long. That's why I had to buy a bolt of black and white fabric, because I want black and white fabric on everything. I'm cutting one strip. This strip is 2¼ inch strip. I only needed one to make it all the way around. Now I'm going to fold it in half, and we are going to press it. And then I'm going to trim off the salvage. That's that icky stuff that's on the end. And now I'm going to fold it down at a 45-degree angle and press it again. And then I'm going to fold it right back in half the way it was, and then press it again. Press you right back into place. That's creating a little pocket. I'm just going to trim off about 1/4 inch away, just to give it a little less bulk in that area. I'm going to sew on the back and flip to the front. I have a video where I sew on the front and flip to the back and use permanent glue, which will work too and give you a very beautiful finish. But I decided I'll be a big girl and sew on the back. I'm flipping that open just a little bit. I'm sewing down, and then I just close it. That gives me a little bit more room in that pocket, just a touch. And then I get down to about 1/4 inch, and then I sew off the diagonal. Then I fold up at a 45-degree angle and right back down towards my body. If you watch the other video, I do this much more slowly. And there we are. We're doing this so that we have nice mitered corners. And then when I get to the end, I stop. I look at it. I just eyeball it, and I'm going to cut at a diagonal angle so that we have it. Just tuck it right in there. Just tuck it in. Using my purple thing, or actually my blue thing here. And I'm like, it's not smooth enough. So I cut off a little bit more, and then I tuck it in again. And then I'm going to pick up where I left off and just sew straight down to meet where I started. What? Just like that. And that's how I join my ends right now. There are other ways of doing it. There are cleaner ways of doing it, but this is probably the fastest and easiest way to do it. I'm giving my mug rug a little haircut so that I don't have to worry about these pieces poking out. And now I'm just going to give it a little press on the back. And I'm using permanent glue right there just to close up that little gap where we joined it, because it does create a little pocket. I've seen people hand stitch that, but I prefer to just use permanent glue, especially since this isn't going in the microwave or anything like that. And it will last through washes. So now I'm just going to flip it to the front. Boy, that's pretty. I am just pleased with this color story, guys. So I am going to fold it up and hit it with the iron just so that I'm training it to know where it's going to go. And now I'm grabbing my basting glue, which is Elmer's glue. There's school washable school glue in there. And I said washable, so that glue is not permanent. It's just going to hold it for a moment. And because it's already warm, once I push it down and hold it, it already starts to make it so that it won't move, like it freezes it in its position. So I'm going around on the side, and I'm doing the same thing. I'm just telling it where to go. And then I put a little glue down, and I hold it and let it freeze for a moment. This is going to be warm, so if your fingers can't handle it, I suggest you get an iron finger, which is one of those little silicone things, and then freeze it in position. Again, I could have done this, sewed it on the other side, and used permanent glue. If that's what you feel more comfortable with, do it. I get it. I completely understand. Because sewing over black and white stripes is a pain in the butt when trying to figure out what color fabric you want to, what color thread you want to use. I chose to go with the super satin, super shiny thread to sew it down, because now you need to sew it down. I was thinking about doing 12 weight, which is that super thick thread, because I'm addicted to it, but no, we're going to go with regular satin, like sulky thread. It's really pretty. Polyester. and I am just top stitching all the way around. And that's it, guys. That's it. She's done. I hope you guys enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed doing it for you guys all. I hope Tiffy loves it. And I will see you guys on my next video. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already done so, please like, comment, and subscribe.